Okay. We are on page 165. We're 165, Maran, in Halacha Yud. Im lovesh talit katan. What if you put on your talit katan? Your small tzitzit. Be'od she'en yadav nekiyot. When your hands are still not clean. For example, early in the morning, your hands were, a person slept without clothing. They weren't able to wash their hands yet. So you're not able to make a blessing, right? What should you do?
You put it on without a blessing.
Says, very good. You should put it on without a blessing. And when you wash your hands, yimashmesh betzitziot. You should move around the tzitziot. You should feel them, kind of readjust them, as if you're putting them on again almost. Vivarech alav, and then you make a blessing on it. Or when you put on your talit afterwards, another talit. This is referring to the big talit of the synagogue. You should make the blessing on that one. And you should have in mind that blessing works also for the tzitzit that you put on.
What about people who wear the talit all night?
And you don't have to. And then at that situation, if you're going to put on talit later and you're going to have in mind for your small tzitzit, you don't even have to do this thing where you move around and readjust your tzitzit. The person who wears tzitzit all night, I don't know if it's even in here. It could be that it will be. That person, he didn't really take off his tzitzit to put it back on again to blessing. So for us who wear a talit, it's not a problem. You just always have in mind the talit that you put on the Beit Knesset. For someone else, it could be a problem.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
If one person doesn't want to put scissors, but he put talis in the synagogue, is it okay?
If a person puts on,
He doesn't want to put.
he doesn't want to put on tzitzit. Only wants to wear a talit in the synagogue.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yes. It's a higher level if you wear tzitzit all day. But it's okay, yeah. We at the end of the day it's not an obligation for a person to wear tzitzit all the time. It has already become the standard, yes, but it's not an obligation.
Oh, it's not an obligation.
Yeah?
If you have like a poncho, does that have to have tzitzit?
A poncho is not considered an article of clothing.
Because
It depends. Depends what a poncho is. If you mean a plastic poncho or
No. It's like a four-cornered garment.
like a Mexican poncho.
Yeah, like a
Yes,
Mexican.
that one needs tzitzit. Yes, of course.
I stopped wearing it.
Yeah. If it's listen, you have to know how far up it's split. If the majority of the poncho, I don't know how, I've never worn one, is split, and it falls into the requirements of having four corners and a split, then you would have to put on tzitzit. If it's just split at the end, then it's not required to have tzitzit. The four corners are not what makes up the garment. I thought you meant like a plastic poncho. That doesn't count as an article of clothing.
All the hippies wore ponchos.
We used to wear them too. The ponchos are slightly different, but the old Jewish clothing was like a bit long rectangular poncho, almost down to your ankles.
I've seen pictures.
Yeah. So that was in the times of the Beit Mikdash. It seems to be what they wore. They have people in Israel walking around with them again today. They call them Beged Ivri, Hebrew clothing. Hebrew, like Israelite clothing.
Probably more so than the Eastern European.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Sorry.
I'm not offended. I enjoyed wearing my Bukharian robe for 8 days.
Very clothes they wear in Israel.
What?
How many types
Of clothes?
100 varieties?
Of course.
Different varieties?
But the Jewish people have different tastes.
From different countries.
That's standard.
Well, there is, but today.
So, we're on page 166, in the middle of the page. If you are destined to wear a bigger talit afterwards, in addition to the first one, you should just make a blessing on the second one. ויכוון לפתור בברכתו גם את הראשונה, and you should have in mind just that it includes the first tzitzit that you were wearing. וכיוצא בזה אינו צריך למשמש את הטלית הראשונה, and in that situation you don't have to feel around the tzitziot of the first one. והוא הדין בכל זה למי שלובש טליתו לפני עלות השחר, and this is also true regarding a person who wears his tzitzit too early in the morning before Alot HaShachar, before dawn, because then there's not a time to make a blessing on tzitzit. But he has to go to work, he has to catch a bus, he has to get on the plane. What's he going to do? You put on your tzitziot, and then have in mind that when you put on your talit, it counts for your tzitzit anyways.
Do people sleep in theirs? We were just discussing.
Yeah. Some people do.
Definitely.
Rabbis do a lot. Is anybody in your family that
What?
wears tzitzit to bed?
I do sometimes, that depends on the... It's not my custom. The Mishnah Berurah, but the Arizal says it's a good thing to do. I can trust the Arizal.
He said the other day, it would be good for a cold day.
The wool ones.
Well,
Okay, this next paragraph is just repetition of what we already said not so long ago. So let's go back up to the page. Top of the page, 166, Maran. Maran says, Ikar mitzvat tzitzit. The main way, the best way to fulfill the mitzvah of tzitzit, lelovsho al begadav. Here we go. To wear it on top of your clothing.
oh, really?
You see how many Hasidim,
Yeah, I've
like
seen a few people
Williamsburg,
do it.
they
Yes.
wear the wool tzitzit over their white shirts.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That is that's supposed to say everybody, whatever I do is different. They're supposed to see whatever we do, wearing outside.
They wear it. Who?
Outside.
There's a guy in Chabad who wears it that way. isn't
Some
Not
wears it
Chabad
over
too.
one.
Not, yes,
I think I've
Not so common though.
not common.
Not common yet.
Much more common, say
Maybe
Satmar
superior
or something
people are
like
not that
that.
common.
Williamsburg. Used to see it all the time when I used to go to Williamsburg.
Superior people.
So let's see what he says here.
Over just the t-shirts.
Minhag HaSfaradim. The custom of the Sfaradim, Vedot HaMizrach, and the Eastern Jews, Levosh HaTalit Katan, to wear the Talit Katan, Tachat HaBgadim, underneath their clothing. Uleminhagam, and according to our custom, his custom, Ben Beged HaTzitzit, whether the actual cloth of the Tzitzit, Uven HaTzitziot, and also the strings of the Tzitziot, צריכים להיות מכוסים מתחת לבגדים. They have to be covered up with the clothing. So, not just the actual beged, the cloth of it has to be under a shirt, but also the strings must be inside of a person's pants, let's say.
Really?
Okay?
That's for Sfardim.
That's what Sfaradim, that's the custom, and always was the custom. V'chen dat Rabbeinu HaArizal, and this is the custom.
Chabad wears them out.
This is the opinion of the Arizal. The Arizal says you're not allowed to wear tzitziot out. You have to wear them inside.
So what happened there?
What do you mean?
Since many Hasidim follow the Arizal.
Chassidim follow the Arizal much less frequently than Sfaradim follow the Arizal.
Interesting. I thought we follow Rabbi, sorry, I have my memory.
Rabbi Yosef Karo,
No, the student of the Arizal.
Rabbi the Rashash, Rabbi Chaim Vital.
Yes.
With everyone, I mean, we don't. There's no way to follow the Arizal without following Rabbi Chaim Vital.
Okay.
So when we say the Arizal, we pretty much refer to what Rabbi Chaim Vital told us that Arizal did.
Nice.
Chassidim don't always follow the Arizal. It's not true. Actually, very rarely is it the case.
But that's what I learned years ago in Chabad circles is that from the Arizal they wear the tzitzit out.
Well, the Lubavitch Rebbe has a sikha about this, and his source is not the Arizal. Rabotena Mekubalim, and the Kabbalists also, we'll come back. The Kabbalists also tell us that that's their custom. V'af talmidei ha'yeshivot. Then also the students of the yeshivot. Tov v'nachon shelo yishanu minhag avotehem. It's proper they should not switch from their father's customs. Shenahagu ken midorei dorot. That their custom was to always put their tzitziot inside. Meaning the pressure on many Sephardic students is when you go to an Ashkenazi yeshiva is to look and dress like everybody else. It's proper in such a situation to not change your custom. And there's a lot of pressure.
How does Rabbi Peretz?
So I'll tell you in just a minute. In any case, otam meha Ashkenazim, those Ashkenazim hanogim lahotzi tzitziot michutz bigdehem, who have a custom to take out their tzitziot from underneath their, meaning they have the tzitziot out. Reshaim la'asot ken, they're permitted to do so. V'yesh lahem l'ma she'yismochu, and they have on whom to rely. And this is why you have to love the family of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. Why? Because they love to present something in only one angle and make it sound like everybody in the world does like us. The family of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, except for those Ashkenazim that don't do it like us. It's not true. It's not correct. Let me find the Mishnah Berurah for you. I wonder if I brought the Mishnah Berurah. Zev asked me what Rav Peretz holds. Peretz holds the following. Rav Peretz is not a big guy in customs, if you haven't realized until now. So he doesn't necessarily tell you what the Sfaradim did or did not do. It's not relevant to him. He doesn't really care. Rather, Rav Peretz has this following Mishnah Berurah in mind. You have to understand that Rav Ovadia Yosef feels very strongly you must have your tzitziot inside of your pants. You're not allowed to put them out.
Who feels the same?
Rabbi Ovadia Yosef.
Ovadia Yosef says, okay.
It's not a good thing, according to him, to put your tzitziot out.
Because
And he was very outspoken about this. If he would see boys that have tzitziot out, he would tell them to put it inside.
Because it's like show off air.
Yeah, and this was the custom always and always. And always Sfaradim had their tzitziot inside, and according to Kabbalah, they're supposed to be covered. All kinds of things that he was very into. The Ashkenazim have the exact opposite argument. They don't put out their tzitziot just because they don't know they should put it in. They put it out because they believe very strongly that it should be out. And when I say the Ashkenazim, it's not true, because just like you had some Sfaradim who put out their tzitziot, you also had some Ashkenazim who did not put out their tzitziot. So I'm just separating this into two camps. The most prevalent custom among the Sfaradim is to put your tzitziot in. The most prevalent custom among the Ashkenazim is to put your tzitziot out. In America, people have jobs and all those kinds of things. It could be that the Ashkenazim very often act like Sfaradim, but it's not intentional. It's not the opinion of the Ashkenazi community. The Mishnah Berurah says the following. Listen very well to what he says. The Mishnah Berurah says, Maran, Rabbi Yosef Cairo says you have to wear your tzitziot above your clothing. The actual cloth of the tzitzit above your clothing. Maybe we'll deal in a little bit. So how do the Sfaradim just not listen to Maran? I mean, that's a pretty obvious problem, right? Maran says that not just the strings have to be out, but the actual clothing has to be out. Like you mentioned the Hasidim in Borough Park. You're right, that's what they do. But we're not there yet. Says the Mishnah Berurah, K'ma dichtiv, like it says, Uritem oto. It says in Shema, you must see your tzitziot uschartem, and you will remember that uschartem kol mitzvot Hashem. Remember all the mitzvot of Hashem. In the Shema itself, it says, Uritem oto, you should see the tzitziot. Votam ha'anashim, and those people, hamisimin hatzitzit behamichnasayim shelahem, they put their tzitziot inside of their pants. Lo dai shemalimim enehem mimay dichtiv. It's not bad enough that they ignore what it says in the Torah. Uritem oto uschartem, that you must see your tzitziot and it will cause you to remember. Od mevazin hen et mitzvat Hashem itbarach. They disgrace the mitzvot of Hashem, that they put these strings inside of their pants. V'atidin hen liten et hadin. And they, at the end of time, will give judgment for this avera.
That's hard.
This is not a Sephardic rabbi, guys. This is a Polish rabbi. So don't look at me like. Umash omrim, and what they say, sheholchin ben hagoyim lezeh. He says they tell me they go among the goyim. They're embarrassed. They don't want to show their tzitziot. Hayad daish yasimu atzitzit betoch hakanaf. They could have very easily tucked in the tzitzit into the corner of their clothing or something. You know what I've seen some people do. They need to have a professional look, so they can't walk around with strings. They'll do something like this. And it's very interesting. They'll wrap it around their belt and then put it back inside. So the tzitziot show, but unless you're really looking for it, you're not going to realize it. Okay? Vilu haya lahem eze doron memelech basar vadam. Said if they were only given some kind of award from a king. What if you ever saw Rav Kook? Rav Kook used to walk around with a cross.
Really?
Yeah, not a cross like a Christian cross, a British cross. It was like a plus sign.
Yeah.
But it's still a cross. Halakha, this cross and that cross are both crosses. I don't know if you know that in Israel they don't even make plus signs.
Yeah.
It's they do like a upside down kamatz. It's like that,
Oh, that's interesting.
like an upside down T. That they don't even have that cross. They also call it a cross. Rav Kook wore it. Sometimes he would tuck in one side of the cross underneath his coat, so you wouldn't see all four pieces. But at the end of the day, the halakha is that cross is not an idol. Nobody worshipped it. Nobody's praying to it. And so according to halakha, if the king were to give you such a cross, you were allowed to wear it. Not only are you allowed to wear it, you probably have to wear it. It's a certain respect to the kingdom. Rav Kook, wherever he went in official gear, he always went with his cross. I'm sure that didn't help his cause in certain circles, but that was the famous pictures we have. He's not the only one. Many chiefs.
They were like on his clothing, or
It was like a bling. You know, it was like it had a very
Yeah.
like one of those medals of honor they give to somebody. It was given to him
It
as
was a medal.
yeah, but it was big. It was like a. It sat on his shirt. You could probably Google it. You know, Rav Kook with a cross. He said if a king would have given him this award, and it would say King George III. How would it would say in it? How much more so they would come and they would wear it everywhere they go, to shul, they would wear it to their friend's house, they would wear it to bed. As long as they could show off that they have a medal from the king. Said, how much more so tzitzit? It has on the tzitzit, that's the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How much more so a person who shows the tzit publicly says, I have a word from the King, Hashem. He says, V'amru Chazal, and our rabbis tell us, Hazahir b'mitzvah tzitzit, the one who's careful about the mitzvah of tzitzit, Zoche v'ro'eh pnei hashchina, he will merit to see the face of the divine presence.
Aren't you supposed to have a certain sniyut when you get an honor?
Right, that's why you don't wear it on your forehead.
Yeah.
You wear it on the side of your pants.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
new,
But
but
you can also say like the Brit is a sign from
right, the Brit
Of course.
Hashem doesn't say in the Torah though you should show to everybody.
Right.
I mean, some people think that's why they walk around naked all the time. But the Torah tells us specifically about this mitzvah. You should see it.
Oh, so that's but not
Right.
because you were showing it off.
Right, well, he's trying to give a logical reason for it. And then he goes to the prophecy. The prophecy in Zechariah that says that in the end of times, 10 non-Jews will grab onto the corners of the clothing of every Jew and say, "Take me to Yerushalayim, show me the way of Hashem." He said, "If you're not going to have your tzitzit out, so what are they going to hold on to?" So the whole idea is they should hold on to the tzitzit of every Jew. Okay, I'm leaving this where it is. His opinion is that a person should put their tzitzit out. So if not at work, then at least at Shabbat, and not at home, or wherever they can go, the strings of the tzitzit should be out.
It is not a requirement.
What?
It is not a requirement. You have to keep it. Well, this is all the time, number one. Number two, it should be outside.
Well, it should. He's saying it should be. The Mishnah Mu'ah says it should be outside. How parent says it doesn't make a difference which country you come from, which minhag you come from. This is the proper custom to do.
Putting outside.
Yes, I did it for many years before I went to Rav Peretz, but Rav Peretz was the one who solidified that it's a must. Listen, my father doesn't put out a tzitzit. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that anyone who doesn't put out tzitzit is an evil person. It's not true. Chacham Ovadia has good reasons. He proves that uritem oto, to see the tzitzit, it applies when you're putting on the tzitzit, not when you're always wearing the tzitzit. There are good answers in either direction. Here, I'm not a Kabbalist. The Mekubalim say to hide them. I'm not a Mekubal. The Torah says to put out your tzitzit, to see them. Shulchan Aruch says to wear it above your clothing. So I'm already appeasing the Kabbalist by putting the cloth underneath my shirt. But to also hide the tzitzit, for me, there's a limit to everything. But you see there are both sides. Both of these sides are well researched and proven. But to say that Ashkenazim have on whom to rely is not true. It's not that they have on whom to rely. Maybe we Sfaradim have on whom to rely. their custom is equally, if not more, compelling than the Sephardic custom.
Does anyone contest Chavetz Chaim's opinion?
Sure, many people contest the Chavetz Chaim opinion.
So what are some of the arguments?
He has a whole letter on it here in the back. Let me see if I can pull it up. The Sephardim agree that we're not listening to Rabbi Yosef Karo. Everyone agrees with that. It seems the custom is not like Rabbi Yosef Karo. And it seems that Rabbi Yosef Karo himself in the Beit Yosef, he's saying that it's an ideal to put the tzitzit on top of your clothing, but he already quotes there that the custom is to wear the tzitzit underneath the clothing.
So there's no support, say, for like a Rabbi Scheinberg or
The support is that he was a big enough guy to do such a thing. You find that the reason that Rav Chaim Vital says that those who wear their tzitziot out are show-offs. It's actually yuhara. It's considered like an egotistical thing. It's not correct. According to Kabbalah, everything has to be under all the clothings. And it goes to this territory of it. Very often, our customs, halachot, follow Rabbi Yosef Karo, but where the Arizal and Rabbi Yosef Karo disagree, there are many times we side with the Arizal. That's probably where the Sephardim got their custom from. Rabbi Yosef said, listen, I don't have to prove myself that the previous generation, all the old Sephardic rabbis, had their tzitziot inside. I want to tell you that I'm not clear. The way of dress of the Sephardim was that they wore robes. In a robe, unless you were to put holes in the side of your robe, there's no way for you to show your tzitziot. Listen, I'm a small person. I'm not saying what is wrong. I don't know that you can bring a proof that from rabbis who wore robes that they never showed their tzitziot. If those rabbis wore a button-down shirt and pants, it could be that it could be that they didn't not show the tzitziot because they felt that way, but rather there was no practical application to this halakha. Whereas the Chavetz Chaim was saying, you can't have your tzitziot hanging around with your underwear and your pants. He was living in a place where people wore shirts and pants and belts, and we're dealing with apples and oranges here, and I'm not sure that we're making a correct comparison by bringing proof from the way people dressed.
I mean, you're saying you're demeaning the tzitzit by wearing it inside.
The Chavetz Chaim says that. Yeah.
However, according to this translation, it says that the Mishnah Berurah says that at the minimum one should reveal the fringes while making the blessing. So that's what this says.
I didn't see him saying that about blessing. He said that the minimum should reveal the corners, but not unless he says it later on, and I didn't read that part out loud.
And then, what does that mean that you should reveal the fringes when making the blessing? When, if you're putting on a talit, you don't make a blessing on the
small tzitzit.
Yep.
That we said. Meaning, if you're putting on a small tzitzit and a big talit, so the big talit is already, the big talit is having the blessing on it for the small tzitzit. You're having in mind that one is fulfilling the mitzvah for the other one. Okay, listen, I'll try to go through these arguments tonight and let you know tomorrow what the rest of the fight is. The Ramah doesn't say anything. I don't know if that means he doesn't agree. He agrees or doesn't agree. It could be there's one of those. It's obvious that the Ramah would disagree if you would see the way he dressed. I'm not sure. I don't have it in my hand. The Sephardic custom is obviously true according to the Mekubalim. The hard thing is to make it fit with Rabbi Yosef Karo.
Yeah.
That's the hard thing, right? And we have an obligation to at least try. So
it's the Ashkenazim who follow Karo.
Half Rabbi Yosef Karo, and the Hasidim who really follow Rabbi Yosef Karo. I'll tell you, Arav Peretz, I've seen him before many times with the tzitziot on top of his shirt and underneath his long coat. But I'm not sure that he does it to fulfill Rabbi Yosef Karo's opinion. as much as, I'm sorry if this doesn't sound religious enough to you, but when he comes home and takes off his coat, he also takes off his tzitziot. So it could be that that's sometimes it's tzitziot underneath the shirt. I've seen them in different ways, summer, winter, different things like that. I don't have a psak from him in this regard. And then this is one more halacha, 167 on the middle of the page. אף על פי שצריך ללבוש טלית קטן מתחת לבגדים, and even though you have to wear your small tzitzit underneath your clothing, tov, it's good שלא ילבשנו על בשרו ממש. You shouldn't put your tzitzit directly on your skin. אלא על בגד אחר. Rather, on top of another clothing, like an undershirt. מתחת לחולצה, but still underneath your main shirt. ומכל מקום, but in any case, מכר הדין, from the basic halacha, יש להקל בזה. You could be lenient about this. I mean, according to the basic halacha, you could wear your tzitzit on your skin. But there are many poskim that say that it's not correct to do that.
Well, they have many, like, tzitzit now that are like T-shirts. But of course, the thing is you have to wash them because when you sweat,
Yeah, you sweat.
it's a problem to wash tzitzit.
Yeah.
Right. If you wear your tzitzit on top of an undershirt and underneath another shirt, you find that your tzitzit don't really, obviously you have to wash them, but they don't get as dirty as if they're on your skin, and they also don't get dirty from the outside because they're covered by a shirt.
And if you're talking men, you don't have to worry, but then you got to worry.
Right, other things. But I'll tell you, it can get difficult. For example, in the summer, let's say a person wears a suit, it's a bit knesset, so he wears, or a jacket, or a coat, or a sweater, whatever he wears. So he'll end up wearing an undershirt, and then tzitzit, and then a button-down shirt, and then a suit jacket, and then a talit. You're nice to live in San Diego, but you live anywhere else in the world, you might as well pass out in the middle of Shemoneh. So it could happen. A person, you have to think about these things. I can't give up. I saw an interesting psak halacha in the name of the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish was asked about kavod Shabbat, honoring Shabbat, and oneg Shabbat, enjoying Shabbat. There are two mitzvot. One is supposed to respect Shabbat, and the other you're supposed to enjoy Shabbat. So included in the category of respecting Shabbat is like cleaning the house for Shabbat, putting out white tablecloths in the synagogue, or whatever it would be. Also included in that is dressing nice for Shabbat, wearing a different kind of clothing on Shabbat than you would during the rest of the week. Kvod Shabbat. Oneg Shabbat falls in the category of, eating food that you would like to eat, relaxing a little bit more on Shabbat, maybe reading, whatever it would be that gives you oneg, that gives you joy. Obviously that doesn't violate Shabbat, right? The question that the Chazon Ish had to ask was, which is more important? Respecting Shabbat or the enjoyment of Shabbat? And his question was directly, what if it's in Israel and it's 95 degrees out and you wear this long coat because in yeshiva they tell you that this respects Shabbat, but you just hate Shabbat because of it, because you get stuck in 95-degree weather walking around with a fur hat and a long coat. The Chazon Ish says that enjoying Shabbat is more important than respecting Shabbat. And the halakha would say in that case that you're allowed to take off your coat and your hat because it might be less respectful for Shabbat, but you should enjoy Shabbat more than you respect Shabbat. And it's an interesting halakha. It's one that
by enjoying Shabbat you are
respecting. Very good. So you may say, like, what kind of question is a silly question? But the world doesn't seem to know this.
Here's where you get, I know it's not a halakha question, but environmental issues such as Jews who came from Eastern Europe in a colder climate, including the summer, go to Israel, which is a semi-desert climate, and the levush there traditionally was very different. And yet they brought the Eastern European clothing to Israel and then made that the standard for everybody.
Right. Right.
Like the long robes, the loose scarves, the jalabas, things like that.
Much better. I used to wear them on Purim.
On Purim?
Yeah, or even at night sometimes in my apartment. I wear a jalabia. And they planned it out very well, that it covers everything and nothing. You don't burn up from heat inside. It's a smart thing, but we didn't adapt to that kind of clothing living in Israel. Yeah, it's There's what to be said that we need to learn more about enjoying Shabbat than what we put out is a superficial respecting of Shabbat. All right.
Enjoying the Sabbath, but you're not violating any rules.
No, you can't violate Shabbat. I was once with a Hasidic Rabbi, and somebody told him that he watches TV on Shabbat that was already left on. And I'm saying Hasidic Rabbi, I don't know that he's a Pusek. It's a Hasidic Rabbi. And the Hasidic Rabbi didn't say anything to the guy. So afterwards, what do you mean? You didn't tell him anything? He said, listen, he didn't turn on the TV. I wouldn't watch TV on Shabbat. It could be for him, this falls into the category of Oneg Shabbat. If he doesn't see his soccer game, he's gone. His Shabbat is destroyed. Listen, I'm saying this now on record. I'm not saying this as any kind of decisive psak halacha, but it's very interesting to me if we were to sit down and explore how far do our rabbis take this idea of enjoying Shabbat. That for me was very far, but it could be that I have more surprises than
These
others.
days you could tape it,
Right, there are all kinds of things you could do, but
watch it after Shabbat.
You can find loopholes.
No, but there's loopholes and there's loopholes.
So are we allowed to watch TV that's already on?
no. That was decisive. Let me ask you this question. If you have... Remember, we have to get out of our head this image of we wear tzitzit because we have to. We have this little clothing that we put on, that's tzitzit. Imagine a world like Zev. People wore ponchos. Zev mentioned these ponchos that people wore. They're required to have tzitzit on them. The question is, what if I wear 2 or 3 ponchos at the same time? One's meant to, it's a kind of style, it's 3 different clothing, whatever it would be. Different colors, or one is for heat, and one is for rain, whatever it would be. I'll give you an example. If I am wearing 3 or 4 four-cornered garments, does every one of them have to have tzitzit? Or can I just put tzitzit on one of them, because the mitzvah is to have tzitzit on a 4-cornered garment, but I'm wearing them all together, so is that one, does it go on the person? Or is it a mitzvah on the clothing? Do you understand?
That would mean you couldn't wear the other 3/4 garments without having the one with the tzitzit.
Yeah, that's true. But here, where you're wearing the 4 of them together, can you just have tzitzit on one of them?
I think so. It's on the person.
Shema Yisrael, tell me. V'damer Shem Moshe Daber b'nei Yisrael v'tanu v'asoem tzitzit. They should make tzitzit al kanfei, on the corners of bigdeihem, on the corners of their clothings, in plural. Not on the corner of their clothing. Let's see what Maran says. Im yesh lo kama b'gadim shel 4 knafot, if you have a few 4-cornered garments, kulam chayivim b'tzitzit, all of them are obligated in having tzitzit. V'im lavsham kulam b'lo hefsek, and if you put them all on at once, one after the next, without interrupting in between, v'haya da'ato mitchila al kulam, and he had in mind when he made his blessing that it should include all 4 of the tzitziot. Lo yivarech ela bracha echat, 168, you should only make one blessing. V'im mafsik benehem, but if you interrupt between them, tzarich levarech al kol echad ve'echad, you have to make a blessing on each one of them separately. This reminds you of Rabbi Scheinberg. This is the halakha.
Each one you have to make separate blessings?
If you put on all 4 at the same time, or one after the other, as you're getting dressed, like a normal person does, you only make one blessing. But if you put one on, you go brush your teeth. Then you put on another one, and you go wash the dishes. You put another one. So every one of them requires its own blessing. I think that makes sense. And the same halacha is, you only thought you were going to put on one. I made a blessing now for one. It's pretty cold out there. I want to wear my other poncho. But you didn't interrupt. You're doing this one after the next. But because you only had in mind on the first one, do you have to make a blessing on the second one? Yes. Yes. You have to make a blessing on the second one.
But it's kind of in a way almost like being Yotzei on a bracha.
Yeah, but so the Maran says, Hevekim mafsik b'nehem. The fact that you deliberately had in mind to only make a blessing on one of them, that is as if you made an interruption
So
between
if you
them.
did have the intention of
Uh,
blessing several?
then you would only make one blessing. Very good. Haggah, says the Ramah.
It's like when you take the regular talit gadol, the large talit, and you have to take it off and say go to the bathroom or do something else. When you put it back on, you have to say the bracha.
That's the next halakha, page 169. So we'll get there because it's complicated. I agree with you, but not everyone does. So says the Ramah. The Ramah says, "V'chenim pashat harishon kodem shelavash hashani." What if you put on your first poncho? You know what? I don't like that color on me. It doesn't match my hair today. So you take off your poncho and you put on the second one. Do you make a blessing on the second one, or is the first poncho fulfilling the obligation? Does it count for all the other ponchos you wear afterwards?
No. Each one you have to have a different poncho, different clothes.
So it says the Ramah tzech lechazor levarech. If you take off the first one, you have to make a blessing on the second one. The first one only covers for the second one if you're still wearing it, but not if you take it off. Now you have to know, these halachot might sound like such a not relevant situation. How many tzitzit do you wear in a day? It's much more practical if you think of the story. What if you wore your tzitzit, and then you went to the gym, and they got sweaty, so you put on a second pair of tzitzit? So do you make a blessing on that one, or did the blessing you say in the morning on your talit count for this? This is where the questions are going to start coming up. This halakha might sound so impractical, but it really has ramifications which are practical, which we're going to begin to see on page 167. So we're back on 167 in the halakha. What?
You have to wear it.
This guy was extra holy. He wears his tzitzit in the gym. I didn't tell you he was swimming with his tzitzit. He was lifting weights.
In the sauna.
You know a lot of Jewish weightlifters, right?
I do.
Yeah? Okay.
You know,
Baruch
my
Hashem.
friend he owns a CrossFit.
167, in the middle of the page, Hefsek v'hesech nad b'rakat talit. 167, we're back. We just turned the page back. We were doing Maran on the top, we're now going back to the halakha abua. Mi shebeda'ato lilbosh kama bagdim shel arba knafot. Somebody who has in mind to wear a few four-cornered garments. Afilu im lovsham kulam biyachad, even if you wear all of them together, chayav lehatil tzitzit bekulam, all of them are required to have their own tzitziot. But there is a rabbi, the Aruch Chaim. Oh, let's look down the footnote on 167, the most bottom footnote. You see that? Tedvav. Ayin Aruch Chaim. Go look in the book Aruch Chaim. Shehevi b'shem yesh omrim. He brings down in the name of, there are those who say, Shim yesh lekam b'gadim shel arba knafot, that if you have a few four-cornered garments, ve'en tzarich la'atil tzitzit ela be'elyon, you don't have to put on tzitzit except only the topmost tzitzit has to have tzitziot on it. Only the topmost four-cornered garment has to have tzitziot, and it counts for all the rest of them. V'viyo Bet Yosef Khan, Rabbi Yosef Kar brings this opinion down in his Bet Yosef. V'katav azan, he writes about this opinion the following words: Ve'ani omer, and I, Rabbi Yosef Karo, say, D'svara d'chuya hizo. It's a very, very weak argument. Ve'let d'chash laha, and there's not one person who even takes this into consideration. The Rabbi Yosef Karo shoots this out of the water. He says, every tzitzit has to have its own, every four-corner garment has to have its own tzitziot. You can't have one that is covering for all the rest of them.
But this itself is not required to wear all day.
What?
It's not required to wear all day.
We're not requiring about having them all day. We're here talking about
When
if you were putting them on, right?
Put them out and take
Even
it out.
for 5 minutes.
For 5 minutes and take it out.
Yeah. Jiffy tzitzit.
Okay, so let's look back up. V'chen ne'emar b'pasuk, and it says in the pasuk in Bamidbar. You see on the top, in the middle of the page, V'asu lehem tzitzit al kanfei bigdeihem. It says bigdeihem. You should make tzitzit on the corners of your garments. B'lshon rabim, in plural. The word garments are in plural. Umashman, it's apparent from there, shechayav lehatil tzitzit afilu meharbe b'gadim. It means from there that you have to put on tzitzit, even in a lot of clothing, even in many articles of clothing. Kol sheyesh b'kol echad mehem arba knafot, so long as each of them have actual four corners, according to halakha. I don't know if you know this. What I wear in Shabbat, it has four corners.
Oh, the black.
The gray. But it's not split in the back far enough that the back two corners are actually considered corners. So really, it might have four corners this much of the way, but the rest of the coat is one piece, and therefore it only has two corners. And so that clothing is not chayav and tzitzit.
What about like a Lubavitch?
Oh, so Eli, the one that he wears, it's called a frock. A frock, Rabbi Peretz doesn't let us wear frocks. Because in the Lithuanian world, only the Rosh Yeshivas wear frocks. That's precisely the reason why in the Hasidic world they wear frocks. To kind of take away that prestige from the clothing. This frock is split up all the way till the back. Right?
Yes.
Like a coat and tail.
And therefore that is considered a four-corner garment. So Eli will tell you, in the back, the corner that's covered, what does it look like?
What's the difference?
It is. All of them come to that corner, except for in the back, they round it off.
Oh,
You notice that?
Oh,
The reason they do that is so that they won't have to wear tzitziot on their frocks.
that's tricky. So interesting.
They got out of having a four-cornered garment.
Yeah, so if they take off their garment, they be defrocked.
Oh,
You remind me of, you know what Hasidim call this coat that they wear?
Yeah.
They call it a rekel. A rekel. That's the Yiddish word or the Russian word for
oh
it.
my gosh, how they can be de-reckled.
No, so they say that there was somebody who was busted in Williamsburg for reckless driving.
Oh.
That's good. That's right.
yes, about this.
The truth is that there are many things. No, you might say, "Oh, does this need four?" You have to really check if they qualify as a four-cornered garment. Not everything that has four corners is a four-cornered garment. Halachically, it could be. In reality, it has four corners, but not halachically.
So if you round one of the corners then of a four-corner garment, it no longer is chayav tzitzit.
Right. Or if you have five corners to the garment. Five-corner garment doesn't need tzitziot. Only a four-cornered garment.
It's really kind of irrelevant argument since it's considered to be necessary to wear a talit katan, even if you don't wear a four-cornered garment.
Today, social norm.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But it's, we were talking about, if you're wearing a poncho or something like that, then with a kali katan, you'd still have to have a tzitzit on it, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So it's-
Because
and-
that's a classic case of wearing more than one four-cornered garment. You could round off one of the corners of the poncho, but then it's probably going to miss the...
symmetry of the.
Yeah.
Right, it doesn't look as nice. All right, let's see here. So you see that because it uses the word big dehem, that's on plural, in the conclusion of our rabbis,
Where they sell the bunches?
Where? Any store in Tijuana? You go to New Mexico, any of the Indian stores.
by the way, now I've been seeing a lot of in a lot of clothing stores, this African clothing is coming back into fashion. I don't know what they're called, but essentially it just looks like a big sheet folded in half.
Yeah.
And if they're split up far enough, those would require four corners. That would require tzitziot on them. Actually, in Ashkenazi tradition, in the olden days, they didn't used to call tzitzit. They called them the Dalet Kanfos. That's what they called them. The four corners. That was what it was known as. Because it's not correct to confuse the word tzitzit, which are the strings, with the actual garment, which are...
Is African Muslims? African.
I don't know which kind of Africans, but they're selling them in stores.
In the 60s, again, that was very big in the African American community. Everybody wore them on campus.
V'im haya b'dato, and if it wasn't a person's... I see what's already... Let's do this one halacha. V'im haya b'dato mitchila. And if it was originally his intention, to wear a few four-cornered garments, one after the next. We're in the middle of page 168. You make a blessing on the first one, and you exempt the rest of them with that blessing. That's on condition that you don't get distracted or do anything in between each of those garments. But if you do get distracted or you do something else, you must go back and make a blessing on each one of them. Tomorrow we're going to mention about today. Most people don't even make a blessing on their small tzitzit. So how does that play into this discussion? Maran here is talking about tzitziot that are big enough for you to make a blessing. I remember we said one of the main reasons why we don't make a blessing on the small tzitzit is not just because we wear a talit afterwards. It's because not everyone agrees that the size of tzitzit which we wear is actually big enough, halachically, to make a blessing on it. And therefore we're going to see that B'zal tomorrow.
You see different types of, some of them go down to the person's knees.
Sure.
Some are
Sure.
more wasted. But what I learned years ago was that on the small one you say al mitzvah tzitzit, and then the big one.
And so we mentioned that Sfaradim, we don't do that, and what I understand is most married Ashkenazim don't do that either. Right. Alright, so B'zat Hashem, we'll pick it up tomorrow when we left off. 8:30.